All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of A Sip of Knowledge with Marty Duffy, Lou Bryson, and Liz Rose this week back. She's with us again, also with special guest Donald Snyder from Time and Tasks. I'm going to let your host give a more formal introduction, Donald, in just a moment. Real quick before I turn things over, I'm Will Hookinga from Zabby.co. And as always, just want to point out a few different ways that you can interact with us throughout the show today. So on your right, there's a chat box. Feel free to say hello. Let us know where you're joining from around the world. If you have a question at any point for Donald or for your host, there's a little button at the bottom of the screen that says ask a question. So just hit that button, type in your question. I'll be keeping an eye out for those throughout the show. And last but not least, feel free to invite anyone you know to join us. There's a share button at the top that makes it easy to do that. But with all that said, Marty, Liz, Lou, I'll turn things over to you now.
Thanks there, Will. You know, we are the music makers and we are the dreamers of dreams. You know who said that? Jeffrey Dahmer. Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Martin Duffy. I am a former senior master of whiskey. I do not assume to still hold that title, though many people do call me that when I meet them on the street. I'm a former national brand ambassador for Benedictine. Again, people come up to me, call me Mr. Ambassador or Sire. And then I was a co-producer of the Chicago Independent Spirit Expo for 8 glorious years, and for the last 7
Wait. What do they call you for that? Indy? What do they call you?
They call me Indiana Jones.
Oh, okay.
Indiana Jones. Indy Jones. That's it. Not Anna. Anna was my stage name. So, and then for the last 7 years, I was, still am, hopefully, the North American brand representative for Glencairn Crystal. Look at that. Like twinkling stars.
Ooh, the cut one. Very nice.
Yeah, I have to wash it. I didn't wash it from last week. So anyways, over to you there, Honolulu Rhoades.
Indiana Jones, Honolulu Rhoades. I like Lou. You got to come up with something. So think about it. You too, Donald.
Poughkeepsie Bryson.
Thanks so much for joining. Really excited for our guest on today, Donald. Super glad to have you on. I'm Liz Rhoades, technical distiller and spirit consultant. I have just over a decade of experience across alcoholic beverage, spanning a couple different sites and substrates and products, including beer, rum, vodka. But of course, my particular favorite and expertise is in whiskey. That's my jam. I spent most of my career at a small mom and pop shop. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Diageo. But now I'm currently founder and principal at Spirit Safe Consulting. Hey, want to learn more? If you scroll down to the About the Host section, there's actually a little link to my website. So give it a click. Check it out. Send me some love. Lou?
Poking Liz in the top of her head.
Liz, I just want to take a little bit of credit here. We encouraged people to check out your link last week while you were away.
Thank you.
We did.
I really appreciate that.
It just didn't seem right without that.
Yeah.
You know? So
and Liz did a pretty good, Liz.
Yeah.
You kind of did your
little a little wig on.
I did do the little check it out thing.
That's what Liz would look like if she was like 60 and with a beard.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah.
Never even thought.
So I am Lou Bryson. I'm just Lou Bryson. I'm not. No, actually, I guess I'm from Pennsylvania more than anything.
Pittsburgh Phil Bryson is what we call you on the street.
I am the longtime managing editor of Whiskey Advocate, and after I left that behind me in the rear view, went freelance again and became a senior drinks writer for the award-winning Daily Beast website. Author of this wonderful little tome, Whiskey Masterclass.
Yeah.
And the classic tasting whiskey. Thank you, Marty. Thank you. No, not really recommended for internal use. I am, geez, I guess I'm not really working on anything but the usual right now. But this week I am. My whiskey this week that I'm drinking is the new toasted barrel release from Michter's, and it is woof. I mean, it just smells so Michter's. They really do a great job on selecting these barrels, and I am looking forward to the day when we are fully into what Joe Magliocco calls phase 3, where the whiskey is coming completely from the stills at Michter's and the barrels at Michter's and the warehouses at Michter's. So really looking forward to that. But you know what? Until then, this'll do.
So you're working on that. That's something you're working on. Is that bottle?
That's something I'm working on. Yeah.
Yeah, working on a little glass.
Sucking down some Michter's. I'm working on that.
I got that bottle I'm working on starting Saturday. Liz, would you like to introduce our special, very special guest for this week?
Sure. Like I said, really excited to have Donald on. I've known you just as long as maybe Marty as well. It's been some time, but so super excited. Donald had over 16 years experience in the industry, bouncing around a couple spots. I think Buffalo Trace, MGP. Of course, we're going to talk into, I think, a lot of questions we have around you starting up whiskey systems. So I think that's, we'll definitely want to talk into that a little bit more. And now, since leaving Whiskey Systems, selling that last year, right? Started Time and Task, and I know you've worked with a lot of different craft distillers through that. So super excited to have you on, Donald. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is probably the first interview I've done that isn't teaching someone how to fill out TTB reports, which is as exciting as it sounds. It's not all interesting, but yeah, I'm excited and super honored to be here.
This is very much like 60 Minutes, so expect some gotcha questions.
It's gonna be drilling time, baby.
Yeah.
Is
Hopefully
GNS
it'll be more exciting.
What?
I said, hopefully it'll be a little bit more exciting than filling out TTB paperwork.
Yes.
Not saying that's unexciting, just saying hopefully we can up the ante.
We're on the same levels as that, as filling out forms. Oh my.
Marty?
Yeah.
Hit him with that first big question. The
big
same question we
question.
always ask.
The big question.
How did I get a red Glencairn?
Whoa.
Or perhaps a green?
Marty, we need to talk.
Yeah, you want one, Lid? I can get the I have connections. If
I could get two, one for me and Sam. That's what that was something I forgot. YouTube channel. Doing whiskey tastings and reviews. More tastings for illustrative purposes than reviews. But I should get a link up to that because it's good content. So anyway, sorry.
It's not competing with a sip of knowledge.
No, completely different vibe.
Right.
I promise you, I swear.
They won't be talking about TTB reports.
No. Oh my God, no.
That sounds like The Office. I know what Office Space. If you filled out those
TPS reports.
Yeah. Liz, that was a movie from about 20 years ago.
I've actually seen it.
Oh,
have you seen my stapler?
Well, that was a great movie. Yeah. So, all right, Donald, let's talk about this because you have a storied past, a storied history, and some would say rather controversial. I'm just throwing that in to make it sound a little more exciting. Tell us your little work experience. How'd you get into the booze biz? I never knew you worked for Sazerac. So when you start right before that, how'd you get into all that stuff?
Yeah, thanks. I actually started my career in water, of all things. And,
I saw that. What the hell?
Right
well, actually, I guess whiskey does too, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yep. Well, hey, listen, if you could taste the differences in water, you can taste the differences in whiskey, right? No, I actually started in college. I went to Iowa State University and go Cyclones. And I started at Nestle Waters. And so I was in production planning and inventory, warehousing, logistics, stuff like that. Pretty boring stuff. But it took me all over the country. I worked in California and Florida. I worked in Paris. I had a department in Greenwich, Connecticut. and then we built a plant on top of a spring water plant. So how cool is that? You literally have the raw materials, you pump it from the ground and put it right into a bottle right there. So we built a plant, and that was
sure
great.
It helps saves on transport costs.
Yeah, that's right. You don't have to ship tankers of water in, right? So that was great. I learned all about systems and best-in-class manufacturing processes. And of course, Nestle is the largest food company in the world. So they had all sorts of systems and technology, scanning barcodes, and everything was moved with a great deal of efficiency. And then one day, a headhunter called me and said, "Hey, would you like to drink bourbon for a living and also double your salary?" And I was like, "Yes,
Wow.
Sign me up." I could not say yes fast enough. So I actually was recruited by Richard Wolf, who is another industry veteran, who was the vice president, general manager of Buffalo Trace Distillery at the time. And they brought me in to take this amazing award-winning 200-year-old distillery and kind of bring them to the 21st century in terms of systems. And I am not exaggerating when I say I was throwing away the typewriters that they were using in 2005 to type their TTB records and reports. So just implementing like real basic things like just Excel spreadsheets and taking away pencil and paper to calculate how much water to add to a batch, implementing just some basic manufacturing software. And it gave me just a really great lesson on how to be in TTB compliance, how to operate a distillery. And then I kind of took that methodology of improving the systems and automating data collection from the barrel warehouse, where I was working for Harlan Wheatley at the time. Then I took over the Blanton small batch bottling, and then I took over distribution and logistics and customer service. And so I had kind of a taste of everything throughout my 8-year career there. But every 3 years, if you're a big distillery, you get audited by the TTB like clockwork, right? Because if you're writing checks for millions and millions of dollars, they want to make sure that you're paying the right amount of tax, right? I mean, that's and so I got a trial by fire lesson in compliance and audit preparation and how to manage a distillery. So that was great. And part of my job was to be on the tasting panel. So there was like 7 of us that would taste every morning. We'd come into this big giant table of tasting glasses, and then you taste as fast as you can and look for faults and things like that. So it was amazing. I mean, those was probably some of the best 8 years of both education and working for Mark Brown and Harlan and David Irick and Richard Wolf and all those kind of big names in the industry.
Did you mastermind that big Pappy heist?
Well,
just curious. You're gonna tell us.
So definitely no. For legal reasons, definitely not. I was if you haven't seen it, I'm sure everyone here has seen the heist on Netflix, right? Yeah. If you haven't seen it, for sure, watch it. Toby and Greg Egelin, they worked for me through various points of my career there, and then I left, and then that whole thing kind of went down. But yeah, so that's crazy. That's crazy. Anyways, yeah, but it was great. I mean, it was a great time. I mean, we had an office down in New Orleans, so I would fly down there, and I just learned a ton about operating a large distillery, and then also bringing technology to help automate some of their keeping. And then so it was good. It was good.
So what made you leave there? And that's when you broke off on your own and started Whiskey Systems?
No, not yet.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a small vodka company, kind of like Liz's small mom and pop company, Diageo. There's a small vodka company in Kansas called MGP, and they bought an even smaller distillery called the Seagram's Distillery in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, in 2012. And they recruited me from Buffalo Trace because I had kind of a broad systems experience, broad management experience, to help merge the companies together, implement software like it was SAP, which is a big Fortune 500 company software. Make sure everything was in compliance, and then also work with craft distillers. So as the barrel warehouse manager, the logistics manager, if you had barrels at MGP, you were kind of one of my customers. And so, small startups like John Little at Smooth Ambler came, and I met him, and Aaron from Smoke Wagon they all of them came to MGP, and I met them. And so I was there for about a year, and these craft distillers all over the country would call me up and say, "Hey, I've got barrels there. How do I set up a bottling shop? How do I do a transfer in bond? How do I do this the right way? How do I spell TTB, right?" And so there was a real need for kind of a seasoned professional like myself to go and consult. So in 2013, I started Whiskey Resources, which later became Whiskey Systems, to just kind of consult and help craft distilleries, just navigate this really complicated regulated world, which is a lot more complicated than I think people originally think when they jump into it. And yeah, so that's my sort of professional corporate life. And then I jumped out and did my own thing.
All that led up to making, starting up Whiskey Systems, because you said there is definitely a need, and I'm going to supply the answer to that need.
That's right. So I started in 2013 selling Excel spreadsheets. Let me tell you, that is a terrible business model. Don't ever do that, right?
Been there.
Yeah. So I was selling these Excel spreadsheets and training people how to use it, but I would get phone calls like, "Hey, Donald, I've put the numbers in here, and this tab isn't updating, and nothing's changing." Okay, well, did you do something? Oh, well, I deleted all these rows, right? Yeah. I'm supposed to delete all of these every time, right?
Formulas.
Like, yeah, you don't need formulas. You overwrite them, right? And I remember one very painful training call. I was on a call with someone who was well-meaning, heart was in the right place, wanted to do the right thing, but I was on a call for 3 hours teaching him how to copy and paste special values. Now, that sounds simple enough, but it could be complicated if you're not familiar with it. And so eventually, issues with files being corrupted, shared, overwritten, deleted, lost, it was just like, okay, there is an opportunity here to take this online where it would be much safer, right, than trying to keep, auditable government records on an Excel spreadsheet. So that's that was the impetus. And then I stole Jack Segan, who was an amazing programmer from Motorola. And then I kind of built my team organically over the last 8 years, and we built it online. I'm not a computer programmer myself, and I don't know the first thing about any of that language, but Jack and I, and later Rich Zurich, who was another computer programmer, and we kind of built our team and designed it to be online.
What were some of those gaps or needs initially, and how did that kind of evolve as the industry evolved, the craft industry? If you can talk a little bit.
That's a great question. So initially, so 2013, we launched Whiskey System 2014. At the time, there was only one other software out there.
Yeah.
It was Distillery Solutions. It later became 5x5. And I give Jason Lippa credit, as much as we kind of battled over the last 8 years, as competitors, he was first to market. He saw the need. He was a computer programmer, very savvy guy. And he knew he did a really great job, but his software was a little expensive and kind of still had, kind of clunky. And so I saw this opportunity to say, all right, I'm going to have a kind of flat price software, super easy to use, not too complicated, and just kind of, have a competition. And so it was that kind of really him and I to kind of battle it out. And initially, the only real need was people didn't know how to fill out the TTB reports. And they just like, look, I just want something real basic. I can enter in what I did, and then it'll fill out the TTB reports for me. And that at its core was what Whiskey Systems was. But then the needs of the craft distillers kept going. Well, they need to understand their sales volume. Okay, well, let's kind of build, kind of profitability. Let's build cost tracking. Let's get batch tracking. Let's do FDA organic tracking. Let's do, planning. Let's do raw material sourcing. Let's do purchase order issuing and vendor planning. And so the needs of the craft distillers as they became more sophisticated grew along with us, right? Effectively, Whiskey System started as an Excel spreadsheet to do TTB reporting, and then kind of grew to kind of almost an ERP style kind of machine. And it was interesting because, there was a sophistication among craft distillers as they grew over the last 8 years, right? Maybe they started with some initial investment money, or they had some initial money, and then they kind of realized, okay, I need to make money. I need to make a profit. I need to be successful. So their needs kind of grew and grew and grew, and we kind of grew to accommodate those needs.
Those initial TTB forms, what kind of information were they? It's just production and.
Yeah. Well, so anyone who has a distilled spirit plant permit, a DSP, every month, it's incredibly painful. Every month you have to fill out 3 incredibly complicated reports, which happen to be the same reports that Diageo sends out in the United States. So whether you've got a 15-gallon still making 1,000 cases a year, or Sazerac selling millions of cases a year, you're filling out the same monthly reports: production, storage, and processing. And if you're a smaller distillery, you get to pay your excise taxes 4 times a year, every quarter. But if you get bigger, then you got to pay it every 15 days. So imagine,
wow,
imagine a more complicated version of your personal income taxes, and you got to do that twice a month, and then file 3 separate reports every month. So it's incredibly overwhelming. And certainly, if you do it wrong, your license is at risk, or you could have penalties.
Why
interest.
is that, Donald?
What?
Why do they make it like that? Is there a reason, or is it just government being trying to put a little?
Some of these reports haven't been updated since like the 50s, but if you go back in time to like, let's even just say like 2000, before the Tuttle Towns and before kind of the initial craft distillers really started, there was only a handful of distilleries in the United States, and they were all fairly big brands. The craft distillery boom really started, let's call it 2005, 2006, maybe even kind of really growing 2000, kind of teens, 2013 and beyond. So the infrastructure that was required was really to accommodate all these big distilleries and everything they could possibly do. Transfer and bond, shipping product out, bringing in tankers or rail cars, all those different things that big distilleries had to find a place on these reports. And so, if you're Sazerac Buffalo Trace, you've got a whole compliance department to do these reports. If you're a mom and pop person who wants to make some really cool brandies, you may not have an entire government record section. So the same expectations that are on the big boys are on the small craft distilleries. And so there was definitely a need that I saw to help make it simpler for them, kind of take that pain away,
But that's
and the purpose of all this is tax collection, really?
Yeah, tax collection, inventory management. The TTB tracks everything from the grains in the fermenters to the proof gallons and the bottles in every step of the way, right? They want to know how many barrels of bourbon are sitting in the United States. They want to know how much rum was transferred in from Puerto Rico and U.S. Virgin Islands. They want to know how many proof gallons of GNS were bottled, or how many gallons of imported whiskey were bottled. They want to know all of those things, and inevitably it all funnels to a federal excise tax return.
Well, that's just it, though. There's a number of distilleries I know of that they hate the paperwork. I mean, they really think distilling is just about going into the still house and distilling.
Yeah.
And they don't even think about when they're faced with a lot of the paperwork and reporting, not only the tax and government stuff, but even things like KPIs for their sales staff. They just seem overwhelmed by it. They just don't get it. And so Excel sheets, which I don't know, I had to learn it working for Diageo, and I kind of dig them. But they're intimidated. I don't get it, though. I don't understand why. I mean, you start any business, you got to really kind of go in thinking you're going to be dealing with that stuff, right?
Yeah. I between 2013 and probably 2018, I was traveling twice a month minimum all over the country with distillers that got in over their head with getting out of compliance with TTB reporting. There's one story that I like to share. I got a phone call from a guy out in California, and he said, "Hey, I'm having some issues with my TTB reports. I'm a little behind. if you could come and help me out, that'd be great. So no problem. Got on an airplane, flew out there. He picked me up at the airport, locked the door, and he said, "Oh, full disclosure, I've never filed any federal excise tax. I've never filed any TTB reports. I'm under field investigation by my local ATF branch, and the TTB are going to be here next week to do an audit. So if you could help prepare me for what I need to do for this audit, that would be great." Now I'm shaking, trying to open the door as hard as possible, but yeah, it was a week of hell.
Like a little bit like a horror story.
Yeah. Oh, I was there Monday to Friday, and I still had work to do over the weekend.
Yeah.
When I asked them, can you give me your production records? Okay. Oh, here's a Post-it note that I wrote in 2015. At that point, it becomes this forensic accounting murder mystery. All right, what do we got? We got an invoice over here that you sold 15 cases to this person. Okay, well, you had to have this number of bottles. Well, you got this, red traction over here. So,
Wow.
but I did that over and over and over again. Hundreds of distillers I traveled to either get them caught up with their reports or get them started to paying their taxes.
So when you had a customer, someone comes to you and you give them the system, the whole thing, then they're kind of tied to you, or you're tied to them, in that you have to. Yeah, they're gonna say, they come back a month later and say, "I still don't understand this. Can you come
say,
back?"
"Good, that's good."
I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me. To quote Warshak. Look, if you've got a business model and you have an opportunity to have sticky customers, that's always a good thing, right?
Sticky customers,
right? Customers that they're invested in keeping that relationship. So that's always good. But it's
just pour some of that over them, Donald.
Yeah,
that's
real sticky.
Trap them right in.
But it's so the distiller. A lot of time I'll come out there and say, "Look, we'll get you caught up. We'll use all these Excel spreadsheets to kind of do the magical math. What plausibly happened. We'll get their TTB reports updated, and then we'll move them over to whiskey systems so they can be more self-sustained." And then what I found out was, just me and Jack kind of launching the software, and Jack is absolutely brilliant. He's an amazing computer programmer. We started this, and then as we grew and we had enough money to hire other people, we immediately kind of turned those profits back into hiring new employees. So we hired Jennifer Norris, who is an absolute brilliant compliance expert. She's managed craft distilleries. She's just absolutely incredible. And I think to kind of flash forward, my entire team at Whiskey Systems is now fully employed by the company that acquired the software. So they're still supporting the platform and they're still working on it. But, we hired Jennifer. She was absolutely amazing. We hired Randall Bucksbaum, who is our national sales manager, to help kind of work with people. So as we got enough subscriptions to hire more people, we kind of reinvested that and hired more people to help support the industry. So, if they had a quick question, they're working with support for training, or they're working with Randall to, kind of unlock new features. And so we just kept growing the team as we could, and to meet all those needs. Because when you get into this business, the last thing you think about is TTB reporting, and it's so overwhelming. You've kind of held their hands and kind of helped them make sense of it.
I'm pretty sure there are a couple people out there. That's the reason they got into this.
I think so.
Just really want to. Yep.
If I have to make whiskey to do that, so be it.
I was just down at ADI, the ADI conference. People were going, "Where are those forms?"
Yeah, that's right.
Sign me up.
I will say this. I just gave a webinar about at Moonshine University. I wasn't able to go to their full-time class, but I've taught there quite a bit about like what you need to expect when you start a craft distillery in terms of business planning and things like that. Just some high-level concepts. And I kind of commented that most craft distillers, it's kind of like, okay, husband and wife or friends or group of friends, and someone gets voluntold that they're going to be the compliance guy or girl, or a woman. And they
usually when they're not present at that meeting.
Yeah, that's right. Like, okay, who knows how to use Excel? Anyone? Okay, you get to do that. You have an accounting degree? All right, you get to do
you're
the
done.
compliance work, and you get to fill out all these forms and stuff. So you know, well, actually, I just taught a webinar to the Washington State Society of CPAs, kind of talking about craft distiller struggles with cost accounting and manufacturing accounting and compliance, all kind of stuff. And I told them, yeah, no one starts with a full-time CPA or a full-time CFO in these craft distillers. It's usually several years. So, anyways, you know, so someone's got to do it. Someone's got to kind of step up and do that work. And yeah, someone gets forced to do it.
Don, what's the number one question you get, and what question are people not asking when they're first?
Ooh.
Oh, when they're starting up?
Yeah, that they should be asking.
Yeah. How am I going to make a profit? Like, that is the most important question that people are not asking.
Okay.
Really? Wow.
So, yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, let's dig into that. So I sold Whiskey Systems last year. And I'll just kind of, talk a little bit about that, but not to digress. So my entire team, the entire support team, got fully employed by the same company that bought 5x5, the 2019. So now 5x5 Distillery Solutions and Whiskey Systems are now kind of they're both, the platforms are being run independently, but they're now they're kind of in one world-class organization. But so I left and I started consulting just with some of the network that I've built. And what I do now is valuations. So a distiller will say, how much is my company worth? If I was going to sell it, how much do you think I should get? Or if I want to bring on investors, or actually just did a valuation for someone who's getting divorced and his wife wanted to take half of his company. So I had to do a third-party valuation, which that's a story for another time. But anyway, so what I've been doing now is working with distillers to try to figure out what their company is worth. And what I find is nobody's making money. Like, nobody's making a profit. And so what people are asking me is, how can the question that I get, the most popular question is how much can I sell my distillery for?
Oh my God.
And, because they've run out of cash, or they don't have, or they're running out of friends and family to give them money. And so they come to me and say, listen,
dancing on the edge of a major set of collapses.
I
I hate to get.
I don't
rolling.
Yeah. I could start quoting the movie The Big Short. No. None of these craft distillers are publicly traded. So,
Okay.
I think so the question that I get asked is, how much is my distillery worth? And what they're not asking is, how do I take a distillery and make a profit?
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing to say, okay, I can take my profits and reinvest it into a barrel inventory or an aging rum program or something that's kind of reinvesting the profits, but they have to start with a profitable business model to begin with. And so so now over the last year, I've been consulting with distilleries. How do I look at my product mix? How do I look at my headcount? How do I look at my whole operation to say, how can I take these assets and my inventory and sell it at a profit? Do I need to raise my prices? Do I need to lower my cost of goods? Do I need to expand distribution? Do I need to focus more on feet in the door for cocktails and so that's a question I get asked now these days is how do we make money?
Well, it's good though. I mean, that is good, because there's a lot of folks who get into this business and they go into it for the glamour, the perceived glamour of being a distiller and owning a distillery. It's like here in Chicago back in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of guys down at the Board of Trade who always wanted to buy a bar because they thought it was cool and they could bring their buddies in. But then their buddies would drink for free and they wouldn't make any money and the bar would go under.
I've seen movies about that, haven't I?
Yeah.
Seems like it.
I was just talking to a woman yesterday down in Kentucky who works with distilleries, and she says the number one thing is none of them think of the business aspect of it, of making a profit so they can sustain this thing, because they all think they zero in on making whiskey, and that's the cool part, and everyone's going to love my whiskey, for some reason, even though they're not marketing it there. No one's tasting it.
It has a great name.
Yeah.
I wrote an article for Beverage Master magazine called "If You Build It, They Will Come."
Yeah.
And the idea of the article was kind of a play on, obviously the Field of Dreams, but the idea is the craft distillers have this expectation that if they build this distillery, and they build these amazing products, the people would just kind of flock to them.
Yeah.
And to some degree, that's true if you can kind of get some viral action, but it takes effort, right? You need to advertise and, get on the radio, put boots on the ground at tastings every night at bars, really do social media and bring in live events, come up with reasons why people need to come to your distillery. It's not just plowing down some corn, putting in a baseball field and hoping people show up. It's a lot of work, and the whole sales and marketing part of it, don't even get me started, because a lot of them, they'll make a quality product and they'll make an amazing award-winning product, but they just don't have the skills to get out there with the PR and manage the social media and kind of make that content to help people drive people to their distillery. And
I was telling you about the one distiller earlier before the show who had a $70 vodka. He's not the only one who I've talked to who had this really high-end, expensive vodka. And I thought, do you have money behind this to market it? And one guy actually said, well, I was just going to ask you if you'd be interested in investing. No. Well, I just got done telling you it's a stupid idea. Why would I invest? But that's just it. They asked their friends, and they said, well, my friends said they'd buy a bottle, and go, well, I hope you have like 8 million friends.
Yeah.
Who's all committing.
Well, the thing you need to look at is for Christ's sake, Dan Aykroyd's Crystal Skull is only getting 50.
Yes.
And you think you're going to get that much or better? Come on.
Well, there absolutely is a market for locally sourced, honey-based, craft distilled $70 vodka. As long as that is one bottle in your portfolio and your lineup where people can come in and buy a $30 or $40 bottle of maybe a more basic vodka. I don't know if you'd have multiple vodkas in that mix, but come in and buy a white rum, or come in and buy a liqueur, or come in and buy a gin that you made, maybe with some source spirits. And so you've got a portfolio where, if you can get some shelf space, then maybe someone will come in and buy your $70 limited edition. Or if you get some viral, cocktails or, craft cocktail bar down the streets willing to put that on their back bar.
It's going to be hard as a flagship.
Yeah, well, that's right. It shouldn't be the flagship for sure. There is a market, but you have to say, okay, it's going to, and if you're selling it for $70, let's use the rule of 4. You're probably, your cost of goods have to be less than like $20 or less, right?
I think that's to your point, and what I see also, and I think the debate has been going on for a while with the craft industry is, yield and efficiency. I think that's, certainly if we're talking about COGS, if we're talking about, bottom line, that's, I feel like, certainly a one to hone in on if we're talking about profit. And I feel like that conversation has been interesting the last, few years. And I think that's changing, but, utilizing your raw materials efficiency, right, will certainly drive down, cost. So I don't know if you deal with that much.
I definitely lean to experts like you for fermentation science and distillation cuts and things like that. But I do know if you can buy a bushel of grain for, let's call it, it's $5, whatever it is, and then you're making, let's call it 2.5 proof gallons per that bushel. If you can double your efficiency and make 4 or 4.5 proof gallons per bushel, your raw material costs are the same, but your output is doubled. And so understanding and bringing in experts like Liz and different consultants in the world to say, look, I'm getting poor yield on my corn. What do I do? Bring in the big guns, bring in the consultants to help you. That investment in that relationship with that ongoing consultant will double your output, lower your cost of goods per bottle, and then hopefully get you to a place where you're making a higher quality product at a lower cost and making more money, so you can keep employing the people around you, right? Yeah. Anyways, but as a consultant, you know, I was like, hey, listen, this is an investment, but it's gonna, you know, you're doing it for a reason.
So now you build up this vast empire called Whiskey Systems, and then a year ago you sell it for rumor.
throw
You
it all
will tell
away.
us.
Throw it all away for a handful of cash.
Well,
Yeah, that's
from
right.
what I've heard on the streets, Huggy Bear and Rooster, they told me that it's
Oh my
nearly $500 million.
Yeah. That's
He
that's,
sold it to Constellation.
Yeah, yeah. I put
Or Diageo.
cannabis. I
That could
called
be
it a
Diageo.
cannabis company, and then I sold it for big money. You know, I certainly I'm not allowed to disclose how much, but for sure it is much
It's
less
$500
than
million.
what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
Well, so the question is, why did I sell it, right?
Yeah.
You know, why did I? You know, I had.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing that you want to do is you want to sell when your chips are high, right? You don't necessarily want to cash out when your chips are low. Although a lot of the distilleries are asking me, hey, how can I sell when I've sold less cases now than I have in the last 5 years? But
Can't.
Yeah.
no, we were doing very well.
Too late.
It comes to a point where, and actually this is the first time we've been talking about this publicly, you know, it comes to a point where you can't offer benefits to your employees. There's no succession planning. There's no career opportunity advancement. You know, there's no, you know, the competition was just incredibly fierce. And what I looked for with a buyer was, how do I fully employ all of my customers? My team is amazing. I love them all. How do I take care of all of them, give them benefits, give them some security, give them an opportunity to grow and get promoted and kind of move through the ranks, at the same time keep the platform going where all the customers were taken care of as well. And so it took a lot of work to find it. So I didn't make as much money as I was hoping, but you know, at the end of the day, now I think it's a win-win-win for everybody. And for me, you know, I talked about in 2013 when there was only one software out there, and then I started and there was two. Now there's like 10 plus different softwares for craft distillers to manage their inventory, their TTV reporting, and the number of distillers have gone up, but not that much, right? The pool is still very small. So you're talking about software options for like 2,000 craft distilleries, and now they've got like 10 choices, right? So anyways, it was a good time for me to kind of cash in, take care of the employees, take care of the customers, and then kind of move back on to things that I like to do, which is, you know, just consulting. But anyways, that's kind of like why I pulled the trigger.
Is that a good transition? So you've got a lot of bottles around you, some of which I assume you consulted with.
Yeah.
So I think you have probably some pretty interesting stories to tell. So
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, so I left MGP. Actually, my wife was pregnant when I left MGP with our second child, who's now 8 years old. Wow, time flies.
Wow.
And so when I left, she was like, "What are you doing?" Right? That was and so my very first customer was Aaron at Smoke Wagon. And so you guys have probably heard of Smoke Wagon, right? They got the uncut and filtered out of Las Vegas. And it's funny, at the time, he was still managing his bar in downtown Las Vegas. And so my very first traveling consulting job, I flew out there, and, you know, so we would kind of get started, and then we'd work, and then we'd drink, and then we'd go to his bar and like just, you know, drink all night. And then, he would have to, you know, kind of manage things, and I'd go back to the hotel and kind of sleep in. And I'm like, this is amazing. You know, consulting is just absolutely the best. I get to sleep in, drink all night, and work maybe 3 or 4 hours.
Is this your life, Liz? Is this what you're doing all the time?
Well, that was
got to the wrong end of consulting, apparently.
That was my very first one, and it kind of spoiled me for life. But no, Aaron is doing amazing out there. I certainly cannot take any credit for his success. But they blend some amazing products, and you know, they've got uncut, unfiltered. Just really, it was my very first customer. I absolutely big fan of Aaron and what he does. And that was my very first trip. I'll never forget it. And I was just like, it was like 2:00 in the afternoon, and I'm like, where is this guy? You know, he was just getting up. But anyways, it was cool. It was great. And of course then I got to give a shout out to Smooth Ambler, which I have a bottle of their 14-year-old, very old Scout, which, you know, I don't even know if there's still any of that out there. In 2013, I got connected with them through Richard Wolf and John Little. And I went out there, and I didn't have whiskey systems. I didn't have any of that. But I mentored with them on, you know, TT reporting, and John Little, absolutely brilliant guy, great entrepreneur, great business sense. You know, I was helping him sort of improve his Excel spreadsheets. At the same time, he's kind of teaching me, you know, this craft distillery management. And so we kind of learned and grew together. And then he was one of my very first beta testers on the Whiskey System platform. So, yeah, I went to Smooth Ambler several times when I was still living in Kentucky. And yeah, I kind of grew from there. But yeah,
Dude,
so I got some
told
really
him
interesting.
way too much about profit and controlling costs, because I'm good friends with John, but he doesn't send me samples anymore. So I think he's got that costing thing.
Could that be? Doesn't Pernod? How much does Pernod own of Smooth Ambler now? Is
I
that
have
49
a
or?
good relationship with Pernod. I get Pernod shit all the time.
Yeah, no, Pernod.
Combine together. Boom.
Yeah, I know that.
They might talk.
I mean, you know, John.
True.
You know, they brought in Pernod as an investor, and it's really unlocked a lot of resources for him, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe more bureaucracy than he wanted, but you know, I mean, you know, definitely he's a good person to talk to about you know, kind of the benefits of and disadvantages of bringing on a big investor like that.
By the way, speaking of Excel spreadsheets, Jerry McCall says, I can attest to the quality of John's Excel spreadsheets. So
wow.
you've got you've got a fan in the audience. So
Jerry,
wow.
That's it. Well, yeah. Hi, Jerry. So one of my, actually, this is kind of funny. One of my last Excel spreadsheets that I built was for Finger Lakes Distilling in New York. Absolutely beautiful setup. I mean, it's right on a winery. I think it's just absolutely gorgeous.
Sits up on the bluff over the lake. It's
yeah,
gorgeous.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a great team over there. I think Jerry was from there. Well, if not, I apologize. Well, okay. So regardless of that, so I went out there and I built. So what I would do when I was building Excel spreadsheets is I would build them and I'd kind of lock them so that every year they'd have to kind of get a new one. It was a good way to reconcile month end or year end and kind of keep a source of revenue coming in. But I gave them the last fully unlocked Excel spreadsheet, and they could make as many copies as they wanted, and they could use it. And it was customized just to them. So everything that they were doing. And I later asked Brian. I said, "Hey, do you guys want to convert over to Whiskey Systems?" And he goes, "You can take your Excel spreadsheets from my dead cold hands. We're never getting off this thing ever." And it was fully unlocked. They had full access to everything. I don't know if they're still using it. I assume they are, but yeah. So
those Excel sheets must be pretty good if they're going all Charlton Heston on you. Right.
Well, I mean, that was the basis of what I gave. I remember. So Jack Segan, absolutely one of the smartest guys in the entire world, a brilliant programmer. And so in 2014, when I connected with him as a friend of a family friend, I said, "Hey, I have this Excel spreadsheet. Can you kind of help me put it on the interwebs? You know, I don't know how to do it. I don't, know how to do it." And he's just like, "Oh, Jan, sure, that's no problem. I'll put it up there." And of course, as he starts unfolding the macros and the, multiple links and the VLOOKUP tables.
VLOOKUPs, yeah.
Concatenated VLOOKUPs, right? And, if is statements and all those kind of stuff. And, obviously it's more complicated than I think you originally guessed, but, that kind of built the friendship that, kind of developed into Whiskey Systems. And, that is the platform today. So anyways, it's funny kind of where you come from. I should probably tell you what I'm drinking.
I'm curious.
I worked, one of the first customers on Whiskey Systems was Bell Mead Distillery in Nashville.
Yeah.
And we had, I don't know, over the last 8 years, we had several whiskey systems kind of training and development workshops. So distillers would come from all over the country to Cincinnati or to Las Vegas or to different areas, and then we would just kind of train them and kind of get feedback on it. So, it's kind of like a big conference for just one tiny little software. But it was fun. Little boondoggle.
Yeah, they're a fun little distillery. If anyone out there visits Nashville, go visit Nelson's Greenbrier, Andy and Charles. Hey, now you've set your own your last company adrift. Probably it sounds like it had a leak in it. You jumped ship before it was going down. I'm thinking there's some government investigations into it.
Oh my God.
But
definitely not. The ship was as right as rain. It was as good as it could possibly be. So then I kind of docked that up with someone else's port for sure.
I saw that Enron documentary. Look, so then you got this new this is your company and you've started it up called Time and Tasks. What is it? How does it differ? Or
what are you doing there?
A new variation?
Yeah, So Time and Tasks is literally just the name of my registered LLC in the state of Florida to allow me just to consult. I had these illusions of grandeur of building another software that was not in competition with whiskey systems, but instead help with standard operating procedures and task management and kind of tracking, kind of time, kind of going back to my industrial engineering roots. But then I realized, when my entire team goes away, I no longer have any software engineers and don't have any software designers. And they are very, very hard to find. So, but now I just kind of Time and Task really is just kind of embodies, what can I do to help with your team? Can I do team training, systems training? I actually worked with a distillery whose head distiller was leaving, and they said, hey, he's leaving. Can you help us restructure our organization to kind of better optimize the whole team? And I interviewed for candidates, helped write the job description, kind of figured out kind of realigned tasks. So there was kind of a clear ownership and autonomy structure. And because a lot of the tasks were being put on the owner, right? The owner was like, hey, how do we set up a structure where, we've got a supervisor or manager who kind of take full control, full autonomy over it. So kind of leadership training and systems training and things like that. So, the idea is, there is a better way to structure accountability and team development. So kind of helping with that. Found a really good candidate for them and kind of vetted them out. So that was good. That was a successful project. But then we looked into their TTB work that the head distiller was supposed to be doing, and he hadn't filed any taxes or filed any reports for the last year. So we're like, oh, now we have bigger problems. So kind of help them from an internal audit standpoint. It is amazing, and I'll kind of digress a little bit. When a distiller has a key personnel leave, which happens all the time, there's turnover. Yep. It's really important to take a look at what they were or were not doing. If it had anything to do with compliance or record keeping or TTB reporting, my biggest advice to anyone who's watching this is to make sure you know how to definitively show that taxes were paid, reports were filed, records were kept. And if every level of the organization can't prove that you were in full compliance, look deeper because you got to make sure trust. But what is it called? Trust but verify. I feel. Yeah.
Yeah. If you own a distillery, I mean, you're the owner. You're the captain of the ship. And even though you might not be doing that job, you have to have people reporting to you, and they have to report, and you got to understand what they're supposed to be doing. Otherwise, you might have a little surprise in store someday.
Well, when I was still working in libraries, I remember having one boss who was constantly reminding me that I could be hit by a bus overnight. And then she would have to essentially pick up my reins. So she wanted my reins to be documented all the time. I'm like, I'm doing stuff. She's like, this is important. Do this.
Yeah.
I knew that right, woman.
Lou, I knew that woman, and she drove a bus, so she had plans for you.
Well, the other thing with time and task is, I'm helping people with the concept of a standard operating procedure or an SOP. It sounds easy enough. Hey, just write down what you're doing. Well, okay, that's a one way to get a piece of paper, kind of put it on the shelf, and never look at that binder ever again. And there's functionality you can do. I don't bore you guys with kind of all the benefits if you have a really good system.
Barcodes.
Yeah, QR code, all the kind of stuff, right? Virtual SOPs you can follow along on your cell phone. There's tools out there that can help you do that. And the most important part is, what do you do at month end? What happens if someone gets hit by a bus? And if someone leaves or quits or gets fired, do you know what they're doing? Do you know what tasks they're responsible for? And I see all the time. I always encourage people to have kind of an internal audit, whether it's bringing in a professional like myself or a third party or just doing it yourself. Having the same person enter all your data into your whiskey system software and then audit the data and then file the TTV reports and then file the excise tax return. Having one person do all of that stuff with no one really asking questions if it's right, that's not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Having some separation where you've got someone entering, that's right. Well,
checks and balancing.
That's right. Checks and balances. Right.
Oh, is that what that was?
Like quality versus production. It's similar.
Right. Find someone, someone's going to enter in the data of what they do each day, and then have someone entirely different, a marketing person or a salesperson or an accountant or someone, kind of naively say, "Did you do it?" and challenge those questions. And so. Anyone except for the person that's doing the data entry.
I asked you there. Did you do that thing?
Yeah, it's done. Just ask him. He did it.
I had a buddy of mine in Hollywood who owns a small studio. It's a claymation studio, and he had one guy in charge of all the financing. And he would ask him, "Hey, are we all right? We doing okay?" And he go, "Oh yeah." And this went on for a couple of months. Then finally said, "We're doing all right, huh?" He goes, "We're $1 million in the hole."
Oh.
Yeah.
It's not all right.
Yeah, the guy just didn't want to tell him the bad news like 6 months earlier. Yeah, when it wasn't $1 million, when it was a little more doable. Yeah, not good.
Well, I've been into distilleries where I had to break the news to the owners, who had to break the news to their investors, that the distillery had more debt than the value of their current assets, and they weren't making any money and had no plans to make money. So the company that they had invested in was effectively worthless. And now, I didn't have to have that conversation with the investors, and I hope they had that conversation with their investors, that literally after they close their doors, they won't even get enough salvage value from their assets to pay to cover their current debt on the business. So, yeah, that's when you're like, whoopsies. Those investors probably should have looked deeper into the financials before they gave money.
Well, Don, how do you deal with the fact? I mean, we've talked about this on the show tons of times, that everybody who's opening these small distilleries are coming from all different types of fields, most of which, a lot of them aren't even business fields. They're pro golfer, or he was a lawyer, or he was a scientist, or they owned a flower shop, and now they've decided to start
swimming pools.
And actually, the flower shop guy, I should give him credit. He probably did run a business, so he has an idea. But how does that affect you? You run into people who are like Oscar Schindler, just saying, "It hurts my head. It hurts my head," when you tell them all this stuff.
Well, I just wrote an article for Distiller Magazine that's coming out this fall, mainly around the concept of bringing in consultants. And everyone starts, obviously that's self-serving.
It's a really good idea.
But tell them they need a writer too.
Yeah, they need PR. They need Glencairn glasses for sure. Every gift shop.
The first thing before you open a distillery, Glencairn glass.
That's right. You need these beautiful blue tinted glasses. I actually That's right. You need a gift shop. You need to fill your gift shop. With books and Glencairns and bring in a consultant for fermentation science. Those are like the starting of all distilleries. No
basics. Yeah.
Or blending. Gosh, I forgot where I was going with this.
I'm sorry. You were writing an article you wrote for Distillery.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's all right. So everybody who starts a craft distillery brings something strategic to the table. It could be that they have a strong sales and marketing background, or they have a strong social media presence, or they understand PR. They have they can go out and work with distributors, or maybe they have a really nice palate. And they used to be a baker or a chef or something, and they know.
The hell was that?
That was me.
Oh,
that's time's up. Anyway, so they're bringing something
Hawaiian
to the
curse
table,
noises,
but they can't know everything, right? I mean, they can't. There's no way. I mean, if you bring to the table a palate to make the most amazing craft gin, that's awesome. That's amazing. That's super great. But you don't necessarily know about finance or accounting or even fermentation science. I mean, compliance. So there are tools out there. There's more tools out there now than ever before. Mm-hmm. Online webinars, software, consultants, and complement yourself by bringing in resources that can help you in areas that you don't have the strength in. And, if you started a craft distillery in 2005, you would have been really hard up. There was no systems out there for you. There was no consultants that were readily available. But nowadays, you can start a distillery with something interesting and you can start a passion, but be prepared to bring in resources and pay for those resources to help set up systems to be successful. And now there's more than ever. Anyway, so that's my thought.
See, that's the other thing you hear from a lot of these distilleries is that they're always surprised that they have to pay for more stuff. They build the distillery, they buy really nice stills, they're buying the best grain, and then they realize, oh shit, I got to pay for marketing. What the hell? I got to pay for transportation. I didn't think about that. It's like there should be a little how-to. There must be a how-to book.
Yeah, there's a. Well, I wrote.
Writer.
Let's see. Where did I put that?
Yeah,
you wrote it.
I didn't write this.
Wow.
I wrote part of this. The Nano Distillery.
Mm.
Nice.
What the concept of this book is, you don't necessarily need a 500-gallon pot still to make money, and you don't necessarily need a huge distillery. And so this is kind of like a book that kind of just gives you some, basics, business models, basics, how to everything you need to start up. I wrote the TTB compliance section, which, the most exciting section. But yeah, there's books out there, and there's consultants out there. There's not only one, but there's like 3 craft beverage conferences now that you can go and get more education than you could ever.
Was just that.
What's the third one?
Craft Beverage Expo.
The one in Louisville this year, next month.
Yeah, there's Craft Beverage Expo, and I think that, of course, ADI, ACSA, Craft Beverage Expo, and then, but there's also other beverage-related expos where you could learn about networking. There's WSWA,
Moonshine U.
Yeah, Moonshine University. I mean, there's so many places. Some of my coolest experience was actually teaching at some of these classes. There was a class, they don't offer this anymore. It was a week-long class where you'd come in to the 6 and 20 distillery in South Carolina, and we would eat like kings, and you would just learn and ferment and distill and smell and blend and learn and give presentations. And it was absolutely amazing. They don't do that anymore because they've kind of moved on and kind of grown. But yeah, I mean, take advantage of the opportunities to mentor with a local craft distiller, call consultants like Liz or myself, get connected to get you the education that you can do to be successful. And the sooner you start bringing in those big guns to help you go down a path of success, is a lot easier to fix than if you're 5 years down the line and you have no assets and no distribution, and you've spent $1 million and you don't have anything to show for it.
Yeah, Yeah, go ahead, Lizard.
I was just gonna say, on that note, I saw Eric Owens signed in. So hey, Eric,
Hi, Eric.
Yeah,
had
there.
a great time at ADI, and looking forward to ACSA. Donald, you're gonna be there, I assume. Are you teaching a class? Teaching a section?
I think, unfortunately, I couldn't go to ADI this year. Right now, I think I'm teaching at the ACSA at their kind of pre
Yeah.
education workshop.
Mhm.
So I'm super excited about that. Kind of give people down and dirty what they need to expect when they come into a regulated industry like this. Yeah, that's my plan, to go to Louisville, hang out for a week.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I don't have to man a booth anymore, right? So that's super exciting.
Right, yeah.
I don't have to stand there and kind of, what they call buttonhole, kind of bring people
Drag
into
them
the
in.
booth, and I can just kind of
Well,
say hi
Donald,
to
if
everybody and
if
enjoy
you are
myself.
doing a seminar, I'm going to be down there. So if you need me to do a special presentation, special talk, just about being a good-looking
pretty
guy
special.
in the business, how
Yeah,
to
I-
stay youthful in the business, just let me know.
Well, I definitely encourage everyone to get Glencairns. I think, actually, I have to say, it's all the way over there, and I don't want to go and get it, but I have the most beautiful etched decanter from Glencairn that I won on the auction.
Oh, that's
Wow.
right. Yeah, that's right. You did.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, there's going to be a beautiful one. We did one for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival this week. That looks really, really nice.
Nice.
It's really
Oh,
gorgeous.
that's right. That's coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is just about it for, unless, do we have any questions in there, Lizard?
I just saw. I think Brad's comment's kind of amusing.
The last one?
Brad Kraus down Panama says, "I remember the days of the ATF before TTB having to file reports by U.S. mail. They had to be posted by a specific date."
Yeah.
Is that why Brad's in Panama now?
That's why Brad's in Panama. He said,
Mhm.
"Don't miss the TTB."
Well, I will say, when I talk about when I started at Buffalo Trace, they were still mailing the TTB reports to the TTB, and they had a packet, and every month they would fill this packet up with all the reports and all the documents that they needed, and put it in the mail. Luckily, and I don't know if they're still doing it, I don't know what they do now, but for craft distillers, get on pay.gov, and then you can sit in your pajamas, type in your reports by day before the due date, and then kind of send it off without paying stamp and paying paper. So I mean, that's pretty nice. That's a nice benefit for craft distillers.
I wouldn't trust the U.S. mail these days. We get
Well-
deliveries like twice a week.
Well, the other thing is, nickels were the free advice. Don't send your checks to the wrong place. Reports go to Cincinnati, checks go to Missouri. So two very different things. Or just pay everything online on pay.gov, and then you be done with it, and takes about 15 minutes.
Yeah, Lizard.
Brad also said happy birthday to me. So, Brad, thank you so much.
That's
Appreciate
right.
it.
We sing happy birthday to Lizard.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think we should sing happy birthday. Come on, boys.
And
1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you.
thank you.
Happy birthday
That one.
to
Liz.
Happy birthday
to
to
Liz.
Lizard.
Happy birthday.
Happy
to you.
birthday to you. Wow, that was awful.
That was
Thank you.
terrible.
But
You're part of a choir.
I almost don't want to tell you that it's my birthday in 2 days.
I wanted to
Happy
say that.
birthday to
It's also
you.
Donald's birthday coming up. So, happy birthday
man.
also
thank
to
you so much.
you.
I have a birthday coming up in January.
There we go.
Okay.
Awesome. So on that note, there's actually another snazzy link to Donald's website. So the green rectangle, check it out.
I know you business people are on here. I know there's industry people on here. They're always
Go to time and tasks plural.com. Every article I've ever written, which is dozens and dozens of articles about starting a craft distillery, cost of goods sold, aging, putting together a barrel program. All of the articles I've ever written are on there. It's a pretty good place for free advice.
Do you have that book for sale on your website too?
No, but I think you can get it. It's from White Mule Press, ADI. So Eric, nice shout out to White Mule Press and ADI. I think you can get it on Amazon. It's called The Nano Distillery, And I think if you go to distilling.com, I think you can find it under White Meal Press or resources.
Awesome.
All right, sweet.
Or Amazon, I think.
Lewis, who do we have on next week?
Geez, I don't know. Who do we have on next week?
Liberty Pole Spirits.
What?
Nice.
Liberty Pole Spirits. So
They're
Jim
next
and
week?
Ellen, yeah, our next week.
Yeah.
I
So
thought they were in
definitely come back.
November.
Go ahead, Liz.
Wow.
Definitely
Okay.
come back, check it out next week, Liberty Pole Spirits. But until then, Donald, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Happy early birthday to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you.
If we don't see you
Cheers.
before then, are you going to Discus next month?
I'm not going to Discus next month. No.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Well, I'm
but
a special guest.
hopefully,
there, speaker, so-
Louisville in December.
Okay. I'll see you then.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers, everybody.